Today we're working on this 2005 Volkswagen Jetta. It's a 1.9 TDI BEW coated engine, and the customer brought it to us for a whole laundry list of stuff. Timing belt, crank seal, brake noise, glow plug trouble code, suspension parts, ball joints, control arm bushings. Anyway, bunch of stuff. But what this video is going to be about is it's got a boost problem, and it is down on power all the time, and it's triggering a trouble code for boost. I don't remember which one, but we'll scan it and see. Okay, I've saved this code scan on this Jetta, and we have here a 16683 P0299 boost pressure regulation control range not reached trouble code. And down here a little bit lower we have 17524 oxygen sensor heating, bank 1 sensor 1, P1116 open circuit. Now we're not worried about the oxygen sensor heater trouble code, we're just going to deal with the boost trouble code in this video. I did do a video on a TDI with a P0299 already. It was an 06 Jetta with a BRM. And if you want to watch that video, click the link right here. That one had a vacuum problem, if I remember right. But I also did a TDI with a P0299 recently, and that one was on an ALH engine, and it had stuck vanes. The vanes were stuck in the low boost position, and it also had a bad actuator that was stuck also. Click the link right there to find that video. Okay, we've taken a test drive on this 05 Volkswagen Jetta. This is a 1.9 liter TDI BEW engine. And what we are seeing here, green is our desired boost, red is our RPM, and yellow is our actual boost. And we are getting a very slow increase in RPM, huge lack of power, and obviously boost doesn't even ever meet actual. Usually in one or two graticules, actual boost will meet desired boost, and usually it'll balance out and be approximately at desired boost. So obviously we have a boost related problem. This gets very near to desired boost here, so I would assume that there isn't a boost leak, but I guess it could be. But obviously that's pretty slow buildup of boost. Makes a pretty significant lack of power as we drive it. First check should be to check for boost leaks, but I don't have any help here right now to rev the engine for me, and don't really think it's a boost leak anyway. I don't hear any hissing, so I'm going to skip that step, might come back to it, and we're going to do the output tests with VAGCOM to check that the boost solenoid is able to control vacuum down to the actuator. Now I think you'll find, if you've been watching my videos, the ones that I just referenced, that the diagnostic process is usually pretty similar. You always start with the vacuum system, and a BEW engine, and this BEW engine, the N75 is a little bit harder to get to because it's built into this bracket here, but you can disconnect it right here and do the same checks that we do on the ALH. So let me get my vacuum pump out and we'll make some checks there. Okay, I have my vacuum pump hooked into the output of the N75 solenoid, and we'll run the output test to see if the solenoid has a source of vacuum and if it's able to control it. Okay, we're going to click output test here. And then on a BEW, you can select exactly what output test you want. You can't do that on an ALH. And then this one you have to hit start. You can see the solenoid is capable of turning it on and turning it off. Vacuum doesn't seem as high as it is on an ALH. Haven't done one on a VW for a while, so I'm not sure if that's accurate, if that's high enough or not. We'll check source vacuum to see what source vacuum is. Okay, I wasn't sure whether that was adequate vacuum or not. I went out to another BEW that was here for a different problem, and I checked it, and it has a similar amount of vacuum to it, so I don't think that's the issue on this one. So now I have my vacuum pump hooked to the vacuum line that goes down to the turbo actuator, and we're going to pump it up and see if it's sealing vacuum. This isn't sealing vacuum at all. Now it's possible our vacuum line is disconnected from down there. It's also possible the vacuum line has a hole in it, and it's also possible the turbo actuator diaphragm is ruptured. So we'll rack the car up and check it down underneath and see what it shows. Okay, we are down underneath this 05 Jetta with the BW with the boost problem. Here is the plug-in for the smart actuator that has a sensor in it, and we're going to do some vacuum checks here. And I'm hooking my vacuum pump on it and pumping it up. And what this test is showing is that the actuator itself, the diaphragm inside the actuator, is ruptured and not holding vacuum, and that the test we did above had obviously had the possibility of a vacuum hose for it not sealing. What you have to worry about when the vacuum doesn't move the actuator, or the vacuum doesn't seal, or even if the vacuum hose is left off, is that the vanes in the turbo haven't been moved or exercised, and so they always seize up where they're sitting there. So anytime you have a situation like this, you can't just replace the actuator. You can certainly try or do some checks to see if it's going to be helpful or not, but most likely you have stuck vanes in the turbo as well. This actuator with a sensor on it for a BEW on this turbo is not available separately that I know of. If you know of, please let me know. I'll be glad to buy these and sell these to my customer. So the options on this are new turbo, used turbo. You really got to worry about a used turbo because the diaphragm could be just as bad in it, the vanes could be just as stuck, the turbo could be wore out, the turbo could be using oil, but they are available and you can put them in there and fix it. And there is the option of modifying an ALH vacuum actuator and putting it on there. It takes a little bit of welding, a little bit of fabrication, but it goes on there easily enough, and then doing a software change so that the computer doesn't trigger trouble codes. And that is a very valid option here. I'm going to offer our customer all these options, and we'll discuss it together and we'll make a decision from there. Okay, on this turbo, the lever moves nice and easy, indicating the vanes are nice and free, and there is no visual damage on the turbine. And I've wiggled it, and there is no excessive movement. The impeller looks real good. There's no damage there. I've wiggled it also. There's no movement. So it would really be nice, since our only problem is it doesn't seal vacuum, is to replace the actuator. But this actuator isn't available. It's unfortunate because this is a $1,000 turbo. And so the only way to get this is to buy a $1,000. And but our customer is trying to save some money. We ordered in a used turbo. And this is what we received. Obviously, that's a 1.8T turbo. Maybe even be a Passat turbo. I don't even know what that is. So, that being said, the salvage yard can get us a diesel turbo, but they are it's several days out, and it's 3 times the price for a used turbo. So that new turbo for $1,000 starting to look pretty darn good. in order to try and save money, the customer wants to attempt a smart actuator delete on this. Since we can't get the actuator with the sensor on it, that would be called a smart actuator. It is possible, and I have done it one time before, to put an ALH actuator on there. It's not a direct bolt on. It won't bolt on here because it hits the housing. The shaft here isn't long enough, as you can see with the two of them sitting side by side. But it is actually a pretty easy install. It will trigger trouble codes without this, so we have to do a software change. But I'm going to show the process on how to do this. But the customer is choosing this way. And it'll work. To start with, we need this bracket off the smart actuator. And it's welded in these little bitty spot welds right there in 4 places. So we can just grind those off or drill into them to remove them from the actuator itself. Normally I would probably have this in the vise, but our vise is broken right now. We have it apart to fix it, but just going to grind these two that are easy to get to off. Okay, this heat shield is in my way in order to get to these inner 2 spot welds to grind on them. So I'm just going to grind these rivets away. I have a rivet gun and some rivets in stock, and I can rivet that back on nice and easily. Of course, it'd be a perfectly good option to tack weld it back on there too, but this is probably made out of stainless. Those rivets are probably made out of stainless too. Mine are aluminum, but they'll hold just fine. I'm going to grind those off, and then I can get to those. I'm not throwing sparks on you guys. You guys got your safety glasses on. I think this would be a little bit easier in a vise. 10 minutes of beating on it later, I think I finally got it off. Okay, I want to point out that this nut is where this thing was adjusted from the factory, or at least when we pulled it off. I did have to take the nut off the other side, but I've left that nut in place on purpose in order to maintain the adjustment so that I'd have a starting point on where to adjust this thing at. So the adjustment is the measurement from this bracket to there. So as you see, that'll be an easy bolt on after we drill some holes. This drill bit may not be sharp enough, but we'll give it a try. Okay, I've made some attempts at drilling this and putting this hole there, and I don't like where I've positioned the holes. It's interfering right here, interfering with that part of the bracket right there, and there would be no way to get a nut on there if we did get it. So I'm going to change the position of the holes now. And to do this, I'm just going to put this heat shield on there, center it, and mark the holes with a paint marker. Okay, I've drilled these rivets out. I've finished drilling the holes here. My one hole was kind of a debacle there, but it's going to hold just fine despite that hole. And there it is all lined up. Now all I have to do is connect that shaft to the turbo VNT lever. And that's going to fit really nice. We need this threaded. It don't have to be threaded all the way, but I'm just thinking it'll be easier just to thread the whole thing rather than cut off the head and thread it from the other side. Now, don't judge me for the messy workbench. We did just fix this vise, so it makes it look worse. Well, it's always worse, but I'm going to cut this all the way down. I'm probably going to need some lube here in just a second. Snap. I got Cortland's young body doing this so that it don't wear out my old self. And there goes the lunchtime buzzer. Nice repair on the vise, by the way.
Thanks.
You didn't clean it very good. I figured that'd be satisfying to your OCD.
I did want to clean it, paint it, but
you see all these vise restoration and old tool restoration things on YouTube?
I watched them.
You know that messy tabletop there has got to be bad on your OCD.
Oh yeah. I wanted to take it all off and clean it.
We need to just throw that stuff away. It's so handy to find.
It
because
is.
You find the stuff, but then you just live with a mess and it grows. When I started, that was a shop towel covered with 10mm nuts. That's what it was. And now it's grown into that. And I really don't want to throw it away. What I want is a drawer and have the nuts and bolts in a drawer.
I
like
noticed
that.
the first time that there used to be a drawer underneath there.
Well, it'd have to be a huge drawer. If any of you YouTube viewers want to come by and clean off my workbench and weld up a drawer for underneath the workbench, it's got to be a roller bearing drawer. It'd have to hold a whole bunch of weight, but that would be very nice of you. Come on by. Okay, after a solid 5 minutes of running a die down this bolt, we have a bolt long enough to use, and we'll cut that head off and that shoulder, and then we'll be able to couple that together, and we'll have an actuator rod that'll work for us. Safety squints, activate. Whoa, my hand was on the blade. Ow, 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 ow. Are you not entertained? Don't buy it for anything.
Ridiculous.
Monkey Spit, not a sponsor. Just going to tighten these down against each other.
Got me? Click, click. Click, click. Okay, as I said, our setting needs to be maintained. I probably should have measured this beforehand, but our setting from the surface that is best well preserved, despite my butchery in getting that out, is literally 3.5 inches. So I'm going to put on nut on there at 3.5 inches. So that should be our starting point. Maybe it might need to be adjusted after that. That is our starting point on where we're going to begin the process on that. Don't be messy when you do this like me. Click, click. Now, I suppose if you didn't have a rivet gun, you could put that in there to use the ALH heat shield. The BEW heat shield is a little bit bigger and I like it a little bit better, so since I have a rivet gun, I'll just rivet that back on there. These rivets fit the hole just a little bit loose, but they do work. If you wanted to get tighter fitting rivets, you'd have to buy oversized ones and drill these holes slightly bigger, but then you would get a little bit better fit. Okay, one last thing here. In order to avoid the problem we had, removing this turbo because this oil line wouldn't come out, you always want to brake clean this thing. Brake clean that area right there. blow it dry, put some Loctite on it. Red would probably be better, but we're out of red right now. And make sure you put the Loctite on the threads of the fitting, not into the hole, because you don't want that in the turbo itself. If you put it on the threads of the fitting, it will push it out as you go back in. And then get you a 14 millimeter deep. And that way, the next guy who does it, which will probably be you right there, doesn't have the problem that we had. Now this turbo's been all across the bench, and there's filth and muck and dirt. I'm going to blow this out and make sure there's nothing inside of it going to pass into the turbo and damage it. So if you want to buy a kit to do this, including the actuator, the coupler, and the threaded rod, visit my website at www.kansascitytdi.com and find the TDI small parts for sale link. Okay, we just finished up the road test in this 2005 Jetta. After Cortland installed the original turbo on this car, after we put the ALH actuator on it, we had to do a software change in order to prevent it from triggering a trouble code relating to the smart actuator. But after that, the car ran fantastic. I took some graphs of boost before we did the software change and after we did the software change, and there was some difference there. Let me show you those graphs. Okay, this was the first one I took without doing any software change, and you can see specified is going up to about that high, and actual overshoots quite a bit, and it overshoots for a little bit longer than I would want it to, but then it is able to bring it under control despite the fact that the sensor's not there. I don't really think that sensor is used for much, and is not that important on these, even if it hasn't been deleted. This is the second graph I took, and you can see here actual boost, overshoot specified, and then it stays over boosting for just a little bit longer than I would like. I would really like that to come under control a little bit quicker, but it does eventually come under control. Okay, so here is the boost control after we changed the software. And I did take 2 wide open throttle pulls on this one. Let me get it to focus. The first wide open throttle pull, you can see actual boost comes up and overshoot specified. It comes up really quickly in 1 graticule or so, and then it comes under control. And then the second one, I floored it again. Boost comes up quickly, overshoots for a little bit longer, but it does come under control eventually. I had to back out of the throttle right away. But this car has amazing power now. This guy's going to be so happy. He's been driving this thing with no power for quite a while. I think I mentioned that I thought the vanes would be stuck because of this, but these vanes work nicely, and he's going to be really happy. We did a whole bunch of other work to it, but he's going to love his car again, I can tell you that. If you learned anything from this video and you want to financially contribute to the continued production of these videos, find the donate icon on my website at www.kansascitytdi.com. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. And if you want to do a smart actuator delete on your Vw TDI and you need to find the parts for converting it, visit my website at www.kansascitytdi.com and look for the TDI New Parts for Sale section.